He thought no one was watching. No neighbor at the window, no witness on the sidewalk, no camera he could see. But somewhere on a quiet Texas road, a small gray box on a pole was doing the one thing it never stops doing: reading, recording, remembering. 2 women were dead inside a home in Azle, Texas. No one had seen the shooter arrive. No one had seen him leave. And the thing that would finally break this case open was not a confession, not a fingerprint, not a scream in the night. It was a license plate. It was the morning of Thursday, July 16th, 2026. The 200 block of Stuart Ben Court in Azle, a small city northwest of Fort Worth, was the kind of street where mornings are supposed to be ordinary. Around 9:30, a call came in. Not a gunshot report, a welfare check. A welfare check is one of the quietest calls a police officer takes. Someone couldn't reach a loved one. A phone went unanswered. A door stayed shut too long. Usually it's nothing, a dead battery, a deep sleep. But every officer knows the other possibility waiting on the far side of that door. Officers from the Azle Police Department, along with members of the Azle Fire Department, drove out to the address. They knocked. They announced themselves. And when they finally went inside that home on Stuart Ben Court, the ordinary morning ended. Inside, they found 2 women. Both had been shot. Both were already gone. Out of respect for the family, we will not describe what those first responders saw. It is enough to say that 2 lives had ended in a place that was supposed to be safe. As investigators began to piece together who these women were, a painful detail emerged. They were not strangers to each other. Police say they were a mother and her daughter. 2 generations of one family ended in a single morning in a single house. On a normal day, neighbors on a street like this wave from driveways and trade small talk over fences. Now they stood behind a line of yellow tape, watching patrol cars fill a road that had never needed them before. The question moving down that street was the same one moving through the investigation. Who did this? And where were they now? The Azle Police Department did not carry this alone. They called in the Texas Rangers, the storied statewide investigators who step in on the hardest cases. Together they began the slow, methodical work that every homicide demands. Photograph everything, collect everything, assume nothing. A crime scene is a language, and detectives learn to read it. Shell casings, the position of a door, what was taken and what was left behind. Investigators say evidence gathered inside that home began to tell a story. But a crime scene can only tell you what happened there. It cannot always tell you who walked away. And that was the wall this case ran into first. There was no eyewitness who saw the shooter come or go. No neighbor with a description. No one who could point and say, that car, that man, that direction. So how do you hunt someone that no human being saw? The answer, in 2026, increasingly comes from something most people drive past every single day without noticing. A small camera, mounted on a pole, pointed at the road. In this case, investigators turn to a system with a name you may have started hearing more and more: flock. A flock camera is what's called an automatic license plate reader. It doesn't watch faces, it watches plates. Every vehicle that passes, it photographs. The plate, the make, the color, the time, the exact location. Not once a day, not once an hour, every car, every time. Each of those images becomes a line in a searchable database. A record that says, this vehicle, on this road, at this minute. Investigators can take a plate, or even a partial description, and ask the system a simple, powerful question. Where has this car been? And these cameras are no longer rare. Flock systems now operate in thousands of communities across the United States, from big cities to small towns like Azle. Most residents never think about them. They blend into the poles and the intersections and the ordinary scenery of American roads. Silent, constant, watching. Police say that as they worked the scene on Stuart Ben Court, the camera network became a second detective. A vehicle connected to the case, investigators say, had been captured by that automated eye. And once they had a plate, the map began to fill in. Think about what that means. A car moves through a neighborhood, believing it is invisible, but every camera it passes drops a pin, a trail of timestamps stitched together into a route, where it came from, which way it turned, how fast it left. A path the driver never knew he was drawing. Investigators say they combined that camera data with the evidence collected at the home. The physical clues inside, the digital breadcrumbs outside. Two very different kinds of proof, pointing in the same direction. And slowly, that direction narrowed to a single name. Police identified the suspect as Joseph Morris Gordon, 64 years old, from Fort Worth. And the detail that made investigators' stomachs turn was how close he was to the victims. According to police, the two women were not strangers to Gordon at all. Authorities say one of them was his wife, the other, her mother, his mother-in-law. The people who investigators believe were killed in that home were, they say, his own family. Now the case shifted from who to where. A man was allegedly at large, and the Texas Rangers moved to find him. This is where the quiet technology stopped being a record of the past and became a tool for the present. The same network that reconstructed the route could help close the distance. Across the Fort Worth Metroplex, that web of cameras kept reading plates. Every major road, every automated checkpoint. For someone trying to disappear into a city of millions, it is a harder thing to do than it used to be. The roads themselves were now keeping a diary. On that same Thursday, the search ended. Investigators say Joseph Gordon was taken into custody by the Texas Rangers. The man police had been looking for since the morning welfare check was, by that evening, in handcuffs. He was charged with 2 counts of capital murder. Not ordinary murder, capital. In Texas, that word carries a specific and heavy weight. Under Texas law, a killing becomes capital murder in certain circumstances. And one of them is the murder of more than one person during the same criminal act. A capital murder charge is the most serious the state can bring. On conviction, it carries only 2 possible outcomes: life in prison without parole, or the death penalty. But we have to stop and be clear about something. Joseph Gordon has been charged. He has not been convicted. Under the law, he is presumed innocent, and everything police have described is an allegation that prosecutors will have to prove in a courtroom. A charge is an accusation. It is not a verdict. For now, Gordon is being held in the Parker County Jail. Booked, processed, behind a door that locks from the outside. The case that began at a home on Stuart Bend Court now moves into the slow machinery of the courts. And at the center of it all, 2 women. As of the latest reports, their names had not been publicly released, while officials worked to notify the rest of the family. Behind every case number is a phone call no one wants to receive. Somewhere, people were learning that a mother and a daughter were not coming home. It is worth sitting with that for a moment. 2 generations of one family gone in a single morning. Whatever the trial eventually decides, that loss is already permanent. No verdict brings them back. This case also lands in the middle of a much larger conversation happening all across America right now. A conversation about those cameras. Because for police, a case like this is exactly why the technology exists. A double homicide with no eyewitness, solved and an arrest made in a single day. But there is another side, and it deserves to be heard. These cameras don't just record suspects, they record everyone. Every commuter, every neighbor, every ordinary driver who did nothing wrong has their movements logged and stored. Privacy advocates ask a fair question: who watches the watchers? So this case becomes a kind of mirror. On one side, a grieving family who got answers in hours instead of years. On the other, a country quietly deciding how much of its own privacy it's willing to trade for that speed. There is no easy answer. This story holds both truths at once, and there is a harder truth underneath it too. When police say the victims were a man's own wife and mother-in-law, this stops being only a crime story. It becomes a story about violence inside a family, the most intimate and the most difficult kind. Family and domestic violence remains one of the most common forms of deadly violence in the United States. It crosses every age, every income, every zip code. If you or someone you know is living in fear at home, please reach out. A hotline, a friend, a professional. No one should have to face that alone. As for why this happened, that answer has not been made public. Police have not released a motive. And in these early days, the questions still outnumber the facts. What led to that morning? What warning signs, if any, were missed? For now, those answers belong to the investigation. The road ahead is a legal one. A capital murder case moves through grand juries, indictments, hearings, and, if it goes the distance, a trial where prosecutors must prove every element beyond a reasonable doubt. It can take months, often longer. Somewhere in Parker County, a courthouse waits. The same slow, deliberate process that this country has used for generations to answer one question. Not what the cameras saw, but what a jury believes. That chapter has not been written yet. Back on Stuart Bend Court, the tape eventually came down. The patrol cars left. The street went quiet again. But it is not the same quiet it was before that Thursday morning. Some silences you can hear. And what stays with me about this case is not the arrest. It's how it happened. A killer, police allege, who was careful enough to leave no witness, undone by a machine he never even noticed. The world is full of those machines now. Watching the roads, we all think we travel alone. The cameras never blink. They don't get tired. They don't look away. And in a growing number of cases, they are the last silent witness, remembering what no human being was there to see. This has been Nightfall Files. Joseph Gordon is charged and presumed innocent, and this case is still unfolding. If a verdict comes, we'll bring you the update. If a story like this stays with you, subscribe and stay with us. Because the night always has one more file.